realize how late it was. We're good. I don't have much of an agenda today, but I was looking at Dr. Finkelstein. Let me grab a couple of these profile-y, three-quarter-y shots and see if I can't whip this guy up real quick. So I'm going to say right-click. I guess we'll do this. Let's look at right-click, save image as. We're just going to throw this right on our desktop. Or let's do a snipping tool. Yoink. That's a cool skull too. Save. And we don't need anything super high res. Just something to, this is a good one. Oh, WebP. You know what? I'm going to try something. Save image as desktop WebP. And if I rename this as anything else, does it still work? Yes, PNG works. And then maybe this one here. Save image as. All right, I think we're in business. So let's head into ZBrush and we'll grab our reference here. I do have the ref switcher plugin installed. I don't know that I'll actually need to use it, but if I need it, it's there. Let's go in here to texture, import, go to my desktop, and we're going to grab these three images and say open. And actually what I probably should have done, if I want to have all these open at once, open one image, have it added to your spotlight with that little plus sign, and then if you import any more images, it'll automatically throw them in there. But all you got to do is select them, and then hit that little plus sign. And to organize these a little better, let's hit this this little icon right here, tile unified. And now we've got our reference in here. So I'm going to throw I guess a sphere and a couple of platypus mouth things. And we'll go ahead and make this guy real quick, just real quick. And if we want this to go behind, I think, yeah, it's that one. We'll send it to the back, and then we'll zoom this or scale this one up. So what I'm going to do is, let's throw this one behind, and then this one will stay out front. There we go. Something like this. So we've got multiple views. I think that'll work. Paris, hello from Greece. I'm still waking up, but keep me honest. If you have any questions, let me know. So we got X symmetry turned on. I got a sphere. I need to make polymesh 3D. See, I remember how to use ZBrush. And then we'll go ahead and just start here. So here's our eyeball placement, give or take. Here's our snout placement, and we could go ahead and just start sculpting this. If we want to keep it a little cleaner, let's do, God, what are they? I guess those are like spheres, right? So I'm going to hit Shift-Z to get rid of those. I'm going to go into my custom brush, but you can go to BI, brush insert, grab IMM primitives, and grab a sphere of some sort. And we're just going to drag that right on our character. We're going to flatten that out a little bit. We'll push that right in. If I do Shift-Z, I haven't stored any camera views yet. So one way to rectify that is, well, first I'm going to make this a little bit closer to that shape. So let's go ahead and move this. I'm going to just kind of move the sides of the mouth out, and that's going to kind of go to a, like I said, kind of a duckbill taper here, something like this. And it kind of dips down in the middle. And it doesn't have to be great. We're going to Z-remesh all this and sculpt, and honestly the final result probably won't be that great either, but that's okay. We're just having fun. And then this is going to kind of pull up a little bit, so it goes right between his face here and then down. Yeah, something like that. And then for the bottom, it's kind of the same thing. So I hit W. I'm going to control drag down a little bit, and we can just finagle these. If you wanted to, I suppose you could try doing like a mirror in the Y direction and then moving it down. But probably easy enough just to kind of go through. And actually, my Z intensity for my move brush is pretty high. I'm gonna move that down just to give myself a little more It just makes it easier to do straight lines or more controlled volumes if your move brush isn't crazy high. Okay, so the lower lip's a little bit smaller than the upper lip, and I'm gonna leave myself a little bit of room so that I can get in there, and I'm gonna put in like a little, maybe a little mouth bag in there too. Okay, so we've basically got the basic shape. While we're getting the scale figured out, let's go ahead also and let's hop back into that again. BI brush insert IMM primitives. I'll use my custom one here, and we'll grab a cylinder, and we'll just throw a little cylinder on here. If you do want it to come straight out from your mesh, you can go in here to the picker, and you can tell it temporarily to stop continuous orientation, and then just do just tap on. Oh, seems to be disappearing. If you do tap on here, that's weird. If it's looking straight at you, that will override and it'll just draw straight out. Still haven't set a camera view, but I think we'll have a better idea now. So we'll thin these out a little bit. He's got like a little nubbin of a nose, so we'll put those pretty close together, I think. Maybe not that close. Yeah, something like that. There we go. So now we're getting a feel for... That's about right. So we'll line up the mouth and most of the noggin, and then we can start moving stuff around. So something like this. And you could also turn on perspective. These were shot. It wasn't like they were shot in orthographic. So, you know, we'll turn on perspective while we're lining up our reference. Doesn't have to be that perfect, but get it close. Now we have this. Let's go in here to movie, timeline, show. I'm going to put a little dot in there, and then we can always scooch these camera angles around. They don't have to be set in stone, but here we got a little bit better view of like his ear back there. So I'll line up his upper lip and his, let's try to line up his features a little bit, something like here-ish. Put another little dot, and then this one here. And obviously this isn't super scientific accurate or anything like that, but just to give us an idea of where the proportions are. So now I can use my arrow keys to cycle through those little dots up there, and we'll leave that open just in case we need to drag them down and replace them. Good morning, Voyager and George and John Yu and Wint. Oh yeah, that's I haven't seen UHF in forever, but yeah, this is the Nightmare Before Christmas. I didn't actually know his name. I was like, the professor. He's got his little brain out. Oh, there's his little half brain. Hey, we'll make a brain. Those are pretty fun to make. We've done that before. Yeah. Oh, there's an even better one. Hold on just a second. Save image as. Throw that right on our desktop. That's a good profile image. Aw. Yeah, these will be good. Also, just having these images open is super useful as well. So get your PureRef out or whatever, and just have them hanging out around your ZBrush session if you've got the real estate for it, which I happen to, luckily. So let's throw all these. Yeah. That way you can just kind of glance around your screen and have an idea. Okay, this we can hide. I don't need to see that. Okay, let me get a drink. And we're off to the races. So we got this going, and we got our proportions dialed in, and we've got our views set up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Alt-tap this head. Again, we're going to go out of X symmetry temporarily, hold down Alt, and shoot this to the middle. Actually, I grabbed the wrong thing here. Alt, X symmetry turned on. Okay, I still got all this packed into one thing. So let's go to draw. We got our tools, our subtools open, and it's all one subtool. And I want to move these things around separately now. So a lot of easy ways to do this in this case, because these are all the same polygroup. These are the same and these are the same. So an easy way to do this would just be to go to here to split to group split. And then everything will be split out into its own subtool. Now, if you wanted to do like upper lip, lower lip, which you probably do, I'm going to Control-Shift drag a little piece of this one, do Control-Shift-A, and then we'll just do a split hidden underneath your split menu there. There we go. So now I can go through here. I can alt tap the head now. Whew. Turn off X symmetry. Go to unmatch mesh center. Turn X symmetry back on. And now I'm just going to scale this up. Then move this. And we'll go ahead and rotate this down. So that'll kind of... And you know what? We'll make it a little bit oblong. I'm going to hold down Alt and reset this pivot. And instead of just being perfectly spherical, we're going to stretch it out just a little bit in that kind of skull direction. And let's go ahead and grab our move brush again, make it pretty big. And we'll kind of squeeze that bottom in. And now we got this. We'll Alt tap the glasses here if I can. Oh, we covered them up. Let's flatten the front of the face out a little bit here. And then grab these glasses and push them out. I'm not getting a really great view of his eyes, so they just seem to be kind of, if I go into solo mode here, we'll go ahead and fill these in a little bit. Uh-oh. Oh. Sorry, I just set up 2026 yesterday, so making sure everything's working correctly. And yeah, it seems to be. So, eyes behind here. If I want to sculpt behind this, I'm going to go ahead and say transparent with ghost on, and that'll allow me to sculpt behind an object. And we'll go ahead and do like the, you know what, let's do this. Let's fix this profile here. And let's go ahead and ground it a little bit with a little bit of a neck. So I'm going to hop back in here with another cylinder. Yeah, cylinder, whatever. Doesn't have to be anything spectacular or important. And we'll go ahead and stretch this out. Now, if I want to put a little bend in this cylinder, I'm going to go ahead and do a split mask points from your subtool split menu. Right now, if I try to bend the cylinder, there's no sections here. So I'm going to hover over an edge. We're going to do insert multiple edge loops. And we'll go ahead and turn off interactive resolution to, wait, interactive resolution is good. Specified elevation, we'll keep it 0 because we don't want to bubble it out or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and put some spans in here. We'll hit Control W, make it all one polygroup. We'll go ahead and go into our gear icon and we'll do a bend curve and we'll up the resolution just a little bit. And we'll go ahead and do kind of a little bit of a bend and taper. Looks like his jaw gets a little bit bigger. So it kind of like squeezes here, so we'll go ahead and do just a scale down and then a scale up, like so, something like this. And then for the body here, we'll just hop in here with another sphere. And again, we'll go ahead and split those off, split mask points. I'm going to go ahead and reset down the middle and then turn X symmetry back on. And we'll go ahead and just give him a little bit of a shoulder kind of body. So a little smooth at the top and then a little inflate at the bottom. And then for these eyes, again, he's got kind of brows here. Let's go ahead and do a ZBrush half adaptive size down to 0. We'll hit ZBrush. That'll just give us some new geometry, and you can keep going half. I don't think we need anything really important here. We're just going to sculpt a little nubbin of a nose, work this in, and in fact, these are going to be really hard to sculpt on, so we'll just do another ZBrush half, or let's do same. Oh, ZBrush is under here. Geometry, ZBrush or ZBrush, and then half and double. Adaptive size down to 0 gives you nice even quads, which isn't always what you want necessarily, but when you're just kind of getting volumes sculpted on, it's not a bad deal. So in here, we'll go ahead and knock this back a little bit. This will make it a little bit easier when we go to ZBrush, the final head, to kind of get some geometry going there. And we'll push this back. All right, so we got a little overlap here, little downturn of the mouth here. We got our glasses that are going to kind of, yeah, he's got a pretty wide head. And then if I turn these back on, let's go ahead and put his ear down. Now, this one here, if I want to tilt his head back a little bit, I can kind of rotate it around. You can also, how do I explain this? As you're going through here and you're holding down shift, it'll want to snap, but if you hold your brush down and let go of shift, you can do a camera based turn basically. So that's also helpful a lot of times. So we'll go ahead and reposition this. Now this is the middle one that we stored, so we can drag this middle one out and then tap it again, and that'll update that camera view. And then right over here, we'll just put a little blobby little sphere over here. Oops. Now if we're across the midline here, we want to make sure we turn off dynamic, turn on local symmetry. That way we can scale on that local axis here, and then we'll just put in his little ear flaps like so. Something like this. And then again, we'll just hop back over to the head and kind of work between these. Now I don't need these attached here, so again, we'll just do another split mask points. We can go ahead and, again, if you just want to start sculpting, ZBrush half, depth size down to 0. We'll give you new quads, and we'll hit ZBrush half one more time. There we go. And then we'll kind of push this in and push these out. And you could also just Dynamesh this stuff, or what's this one called? Sculptors Pro. Anything you want, and just kind of just start working. You don't have to work compartmentalized like this, but usually when I'm trying to wake up, I'll just kind of start doing the component parts and give myself a little wiggle room to get acclimated back to the old ZBrush sculpting stuff. It's actually been a minute. Okay, so we've got kind of a mouth bag going. So I'm going to put in a Boolean right in here, I think. And then we'll put in the little teeth. And then we've got the body going. Let's go ahead, and this is even more narrow. And, you know, like I was saying with Sculptors Pro, you can just go ahead and let's do BSH snake hook. We'll go ahead and activate Sculptors Pro, so when we pull out, it'll start tessellating on the fly. So we don't even have to use Dynamesh if we don't want. We can just go through here and start dialing in like a little pair of arms. We'll do a little A pose here. So we'll go out to the elbow, and then we'll just grab this and yank it down. So we can also do, if you hold down shift and start smoothing and then let go of shift, it'll kind of inflate out a little bit with this particular brush, I think. And there we go. So now this isn't necessarily, if you wanted to sculpt across this, you might get some mixed results, but this is where we can like ZBrush or Dynamesh. So let's go ahead and turn this off. And if you want to, we can just hit Dynamesh. Do I have this in here? Yeah, that's up here. Dynamesh. There we go. And since everything's pretty well separated, there's no fingers close together. This should work pretty well. But if you wanted to, you could also just say, ZBrush half, depth size down to 0, and then just keep hitting half, and that'll give you your volumes with new geometry. And you can just do that periodically. So we'll go ahead and hit Control D to subdivide. And I'm not worried about like, oh, the neck has to fit in with the body and the head has to fit in with the neck. All of that can be, you can merge things, Boolean things together, Dynamesh things together. Not a big deal. And then you can project your details back. So, and then he's got kind of a segmented body. He's got his abdomen, and that's another good one. Did I not get that one? Save image as. So I just need one more image. This one here. Yeah, so he's got kind of the segmented body here, torso and pelvis, and then his little neck here. His neck's a little bit thinner than what I've got. So I would turn on X symmetry by tapping X on your keyboard. You can go through here and you can smooth. You could also do like a deformation, inflate, or deflate to kind of knock that back a little bit. We've got the head shape going. This is actually a little more severe. This will like cup in the back, the little skull, and then the jaw here to the lips. I'm going to smooth these out just a little bit just to kind of make those shapes a little nicer. And these kind of flare out. So we're going to grab again our move brush. Okay. Let's see. Hey, Harsh. Tell me how to sculpt a veiled Mary sculpture already made the bust, but failing with the cloth drapery. Tried dynamic sculpting, but not good results. Can you help? Just so I understand correctly, let me do. Like this type of veil, like a, let me see, veiled Mary sculpture. Yeah, so we could actually do that with this guy, if that's what you're talking about. It also depends on, so that's like just a thin, like translucent cloth. It should be something like, now if it's just pure sculpting, then it would be like, okay, just start sculpting. Just go and take your anchor points and your, like, you can just start draping cloth over. The easier route, well, let's get a little more detail on this guy so we have a little bit more to collide with, and then we can do a veiled sculpture of this guy. I think that might be interesting. Okay, so this one too, if we want to move it around a little easier, we'll do another zero mesh half, or same. Yeah, and we'll go ahead and put in this little lower lip here, and then this goes down this. Okay, so we're ready to start sculpting a little bit, so we're going to hit Control D to subdivide, and then again transparency with ghost turned on. We can kind of infer that there are two little dots in here, and again we're just starting super low, so making sure that our volumes are correct, and then our little eye bags, and then these are just hold on just a second. Okay, these are just basic ear shapes, and in fact if you wanted to, you could even do BI brush insert body parts. They have some tune body parts too, so here you can grab an ear like this, or BI brush insert tune, and I bet there's an ear shape in here, I would imagine. These are kind of more generic, but you can grab shapes out of there. That little nubbin of a nose, we'll go ahead, and again we didn't use an extra shape for this, but I think we'll be fine. And that'll just kind of sit right on there. And again, all of these are going to be combined together in just a second, but it's a little bit easier to work on stuff separately, I think. Yeah, we'll put a little neck on here. Okay. One thing we do need to consider is, let's go ahead and make sure we're about dialed in. No surprises, nothing major. Again, doesn't have to be perfect, but make sure nothing's too crazy off while we're still in the early stages here. And then this is the third one, so we'll just drop that in there. So before I start like cutting his head, we want to make sure it's about right. And then here we'll go ahead and you want to be careful when you're doing this too, that you're not just looking at this from one angle, because as soon as you make all these changes from this angle and you change it to another angle, there could be some weird stuff going on. So make sure you dial in your changes here. Let's scoot this ear down a little bit. This is the first one. Everything's vaguely in place. That mouth is going to be harder than I thought. Okay, close enough. So now we're ready to, I think, let's do one more pass. Let's say Control D. Let's go in here to transparency mode. And again, we got our little eye in here. Turn ghost on. Let's turn off lazy radius by tapping L. That'll go into your stroke menu, lazy mouse, and toggle that lazy mouse off. And so again, we got our eye bag here, and then we've got our brow, which will kind of arch this way. Actually, I guess we'll turn that lazy mouse back on. I lied. And we'll kind of sculpt this out just a tiny bit. And let's go into our clay buildup. I'm going to drop our Z intensity way down. I actually need to swap that brush out with another one, but I think that'll work. So we'll put in a little bit of a cheekbone, and then this will kind of wrap around a little bit, just a little bit of a volume here. The ear just kind of goes into the head. This just kind of goes down. I'm going to put in a little bit more of a volume along the side here. Actually, let's swap this out. I'm going to go into here. We'll do clay tubes. I'll set that to Alt B. So Control Alt Tap clay tubes and then assign your hotkey, which in my case is going to be Alt B. And again, we'll drop that intensity down a bit. He's got kind of a jaw. Not much of one, but a little bit. Kind of goes this way. And again, I don't think you really see in here, but we can, if we want to, we can even put in kind of a little rudimentary eye. Now, it's not going to let me because we have geometry subdivisions on here, so you can just Alt Tap another object that doesn't have subdivisions and then go back in here with a Z sphere. And we'll just put a little eyeball in here. We'll say, again, split mask points. We'll Alt Tap the glasses. We'll turn those off temporarily. And now we got a little eyeball that we can sculpt around. But before we get too far, we're going to go ahead and slice his head. I think we're close enough. So here's kind of the block out of the head. Let's do Shift Z, and I think the best view you know what, we can do multiple views. So one thing is we can start painting on him if we want. So I'm going to go into my standard brush. Let's do this. BPA is our paint brush. We have RGB turned on at 100% intensity. And one more thing we got to check is underneath brush samples. Spotlight projections turned on. So now when we go through here and we can just paint where that headline's going to be, and then we'll go through here and we'll paint this one, and then we'll go through here and we'll paint this one. So now we have an idea of where that headline, that skull line is going to be. I'm going to go ahead and straighten this out just a little bit. Yeah, I think that'll work. So to slice through, let's go ahead and do delete lower. Control Shift. We don't want to do a knife. We want to do a, I mean, we could do a knife curve and then hold down spacebar. We'll do a brush radius. Make our brush radius pretty small. Let's go ahead and do a quick save. And then if I slice through here and then hold down Alt, that'll go through and slice the width of that brush radius. So let's, again, make that even smaller. And then hold down Alt. There we go. So now we basically, let's go ahead and hold down Shift. I'll turn off that little thing there. So now this is all still one poly group, but if I do Control Shift, let's switch to Control Shift, select rect, grab a little piece of this, Control Shift A. Now it's got a bottom piece here, and if I Control Shift drag, it's got a bottom piece for this one. So now we can just do like a split hidden, and we've got two separate pieces. And the line goes all the way around. It does kind of have a, and again, we'll put a brain in there too, but we need to hollow this out. Luckily, all we really have to do is grab this top piece here. We'll say delete hidden. I'm going to zero mesh half, dab the size down to 0. Do that a couple times. And then we'll do a, we don't even have to commit this if we don't want. We could do like an extrude polygroup all and like pull inwards, and then we need to go in here to display properties, flip. But if you want to, you could also make it fake for a little bit. So we'll do geometry dynamic, turn on dynamic. I'm going to turn off smooth subdiv. We'll turn on thickness, and we'll do offset of -100. So as I'm adding that fake thickness, it'll just go inwards. Yeah, so now dynamic, we can just toggle that on and off if we want to. So we don't got to commit just yet. And now for this one, I'm going to go in and just do a Boolean, I think. So we'll get this to a point, and then I'll just put in a sphere, and we'll Boolean that out to give ourselves a little bit of room. I did not forget about the veil. We'll just get this a little bit more detailed out, merge these together, and then I think we'll have enough polygons to collide a cloth with. Yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and we'll subdivide this one time. And we'll go ahead and push this back a little bit. And this again is kind of his muzzle up to his nose, and then this kind of has a pretty downturn. He's got a downturn mouth like I do on the corners. And then this one here, we'll Control D to subdivide. And this one looks like he's got pretty fleshy lips here. So I'm gonna need to see a little bit better here. Yeah, here's a good one. So this will come down a little bit. And yeah, it doesn't really seem to have a chin to speak of, just kind of these little flappers. And then of course his kind of gnarly teeth. Those ones should be pretty easy. Just kind of a little placeholder. We'll put in some spheres. They're kind of blocky. So let's go in here with like a cube. And let me see if I can just, oops. Also, if we're not really concerned about our subdivisions, we can just hit delete lower, and then we can just insert directly on there. So they're kind of pointy blocks. I guess a sphere would probably be fine, but good enough. So we'll put those kind of here-ish. And then looks like he's got a couple more further back, so hold down Control and just drag this back. And scoot those out here. And then let's do this. Let's Control drag to unmask everything. Control Shift drag a little piece of this upper lip. Control Shift A, split hidden. Alt tap these, and then we'll just Control drag down a copy of these, and then we'll do another split mask point. So now we've got upper and lower teeth. These are probably, yeah, these look a little bit offset, so we're going to kind of shove these back here. And if you want to move these individually, I guess the easiest way is to do like an auto groups and then geometry modify topology mirror and weld. You can maybe turn off LSIM for that. Then if you W Control tap, you can just unmask these. And then invert your mask, and we'll go ahead and push those out. Okay, so again, just a little bit more detail. Let's go ahead and get that Boolean going. And this should be pretty clean too, is the good news. And you know what? Since we're here, let's go ahead and make the neck part of that Boolean too. So I just want to see my neck, my skull, and then on here, let's do another sphere for this one. And I'm going to just drag a sphere out. We'll say split mask points. And on this one, I'm going to move this to the bottom. We're going to make it subtractive. We're going to turn on live Boolean. And now when I push this in, turn off polyframe, you're going to see this is going to kind of dig into my mesh. Let's do out of X symmetry, go to unmask mesh center, turn X symmetry back on. And now we can kind of just dig out a little space for our brain, like so. And then we could even go in here with our move brush and just kind of match this up. We can also hit Control D, or we can just turn on D for dynamic, and that'll smooth that out. And then when we go to Boolean, we'll get a little bit of a smoother result. Now, before I do this, I want to make sure this bottom part is its own polygroup. So we're going to go into polygroup, group by normals, and now we'll go in here to crease. So under your geometry crease menu, there's a crease PG. That'll crease your polygroups. So that'll make these a little smoother. And then when we go to Boolean this together, these will be our volumes, and it'll respect our polygroups. So it'll rebuild a little bit better. So if we're happy with this, We should maybe even go ahead and do the lips at this point too. Okay, let's go ahead and just do his whole face. Let's go for it. Here. We'll do Control D once, Control D another time. Do I want to control these edge loops? I do. Let's do this. I want to make it a little bit easier for ZRemesher maybe. So I'm going to temporarily separate these out. I want to push these back in. Because I do want these to be contiguous. Think. I can always rebuild this manually later too. It's not a big deal. So, yeah, okay. This is fine. This is all fine. Also, if I want to dig that mouth bag back, this might be a good opportunity to go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to go through here. We'll put another sphere right down the middle of the mouth here. We'll shrink it down. And we'll say split mask points. And instead of a tongue, which I don't remember this guy has or not, he probably does. We'll hit Control D a couple times. And again, I'm going to stick this down at the bottom of the visible stack. And these two, I want these to be up where we're working. And this is subtractive, and this one, okay, and then this one needs to be subtractive as well, so we'll turn this to subtractive. And again, this is just going to like carve in a place for, you know, the back of the mouth basically. It doesn't need, this one doesn't need to be crazy. It doesn't need to like go down here, although it could. You could turn on transparency and be like, hey, this is the eventual shape of the mouth bag that I want. Okay, I think we're in good shape. So with everything, yep, we don't want these mouth bags to meet. Ghost. Actually, I could probably make this a little shallower too. Okay. So with everything showing that I like, I'm going to go in here to Boolean. We'll turn on dynamic subdivision because we have that on for this top piece here. We'll say make Boolean mesh. That'll create us a U mesh out here. And all of our poly groups are built in. It's kind of hard to see, but it looks like, I think these will work. Let's try. So we'll turn X symmetry on. I'm going to say ZRemesh half, adaptive size, maybe not down to 0, but pretty low. Keep groups, smooth groups down to 0, and we'll hit ZRemesh. If you ever have a problem with ZRemesh, grab a little piece of your object, do Control-Shift-A, and then Geometry, Modify Topology, Delete Hidden. That'll, if you had any little floaters from like Dynamesh or something, that might help. Now, we didn't have a ton of detail, but if we did, we can go back to this pre-ZRemesh step if we want to. Control-Tap to store that point in history. So as we're ZRemeshing, down, so we can like again ZRemesh, and again because we had our polygroups built in, it's giving us a pretty nice result. We could hit project history to get our details back. I don't think we need to go super low with this, but let's stress test it. And that's probably a little low. I think this is fine for a base mesh here. So now if we want to hit, well, first, if we want to keep these edges nice and crispy, we can do another crease PG underneath your geometry crease menu. So when we hit Control D, it'll keep those crispy, and then we'll just do a project history to get our details back. And if it's projecting weird history from somewhere else, you can also do that manually. Turn off X symmetry, BHR history recall brush, and you can literally just go in here and grab your details back by using camera projection. So again, Control D to subdivide, and again, we don't have a ton of detail to grab back, but I'm just showing you if you needed to. So you're not losing any work. If this is okay, let's go back to our stack here, and we'll say, we'll do an insert, our new head, hold down Shift, bent arrow, shoot it to the top. All of these pieces, these working pieces, I don't need. You could save a working file, but I think we're okay. So say okay, okay. The neck we don't need, this we don't need. Yeah, mouth bag we don't need, and this we don't need. Yeah, okay. So I think we're back where we started. We can hold down Shift, turn everything else back on. And, oh, we forgot to add the ears, but that's okay. We'll keep moving forward. This is okay. And let's scoot this down just a tiny bit. This should be pretty flush. So we're just going to put that there. Now, if I want to add a little bit of a, because this is already subdivided, all I have to do to smooth this out is just go in here and just grab my smooth brush. And let's turn that intensity down just a little bit. And that'll give us a little bit of a beveled edge that we can control. On this one here, since we have fake thickness, it's going to be a little more difficult to do that. So let's go in here. We'll say dynamic. Now let's look at it first. That's about right. We could. It's actually a little bit thinner in my reference, but I don't want to make it too thin. So we'll say dynamic apply. Now, if you turn dynamic back on, it'll add more thickness. We don't want to do that, but we do want to turn on smooth subdiv again. And in this one, we'll go in here to crease PG. That'll keep our edges creased. And now we'll do a fake kind of a fall off bevel. So dynamic smooth subdiv will set to 3 and crease level will set to 2. And that'll basically give us a preview of what it would look like if we subdivided twice, uncrease everything, and subdivided one more time. So that'll kind of give us a little bit of a fall off there. So it's a little bit of a softer. And if you want to make it even softer, you can do like crease level of 1. And that'll make it even softer. And then we can go through here and we can kind of finagle these pieces. Okay, so we got this, and we'll go ahead and hold down Shift to smooth. And all of these are now together, and they were controlled. So we can go through here and we can just kind of continue sculpting. Like I said, we could always rebuild all of this geometry if you needed to, and then reproject our details, depending on how far we get. But we'll go ahead and just really quickly just pull this nose out like so at the top. And I'm going to pull this out just a little bit, and then we'll dial in those two little like vertical and then for the eyeballs here again, we'll go ahead and turn these off. And I don't think we have to go super crazy for like eyelids or anything like that. I think we can just kind of dial them in. So I'm going to go into my move Acu. That is your Acu curve turned on for your move brush, and that'll allow you to kind of pull the points a little bit, and we'll just kind of wrap this eyelid around. And then I'm just going to guess maybe there's like a you kind of have this little Alfred E. Newman look. It's not a bad thing, I guess. And we'll just give him a slight eyelid here. And clay buildup, clay brush, standard brush, all your usual favorites. Feel free. And then he does have a little bit of a brow, not like a brow ridge necessarily, but we'll give him a little something to kind of indicate these volume form changes. And then he's got some pretty hefty, so we'll go into our damn standard brush. And we'll kind of carve in. For these, let's hit D for dynamic, and we'll do crease all, and then we'll do a crease level of 1, 2, smooth subdiv of 3. Just to kind of give us nothing too crazy. And these kind of go a little more pointy than I thought. They're just kind of gnarly little bumps. And of course we'll want to go through here and break symmetry at some point. but I think this is good enough. This, real quick, actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and do the veil. I think we have enough information here. So if we wanted to do a, okay, so let me see. Sculpt the veil. 2026 won't work. File won't execute. Oh. Oh, weird. Oh no, full reinstall Windows. Yikes. Well, I got lucky. This is a new computer I've used a grand total of 3 times since I got it. But so far so good. Fingers crossed. Is Python scripting a new version of it? I don't know. I unfortunately am way behind. I apologize for that. I need to catch up. Jack Skellington ZBrush sculpture. Yeah. Excellent. We should have done that. Well, maybe you can add this to your collection here. Okay, perfect. So as far as the veil goes, let's go ahead and there's one thing you could do. You could go in here and just grab like a plane. Let's do this. Alt-E-M, plane. I'm going to grab his body because that doesn't have any subdivision levels. And it's just easy for us to go in here and just drop. Oh, wait, I guess it does. You are gone. We have a plane. I'm going to turn off X symmetry. And this could be the start of our veil, our beautiful veil, right? Now, if we are going to be colliding with the underlying geometry, we want enough. Let's go do a split mass points. Obviously, this has 4 points. It's not going to collide very well with anything. It's not going to fold. So let's go ahead and do a smooth off, what is that? Smooth modifier off, divide. Let's hit delete lower. There we go. We're starting to get some definition here, but even this, if we were to go in here to do our dynamics, we have gravity turned on. Let's turn gravity way down. And I'm going to say set our collision volume. I'm going to crank that up a little bit and inflate down a little bit. So that means anything that's not selected but visible will be a collision volume. So now we'll say run simulation, and oh, there's our beautiful veil. Now, to have a little more control, you could go to BT brush transform. Nope, BT cloth, BTA. And you can just push, and as you push along, and the slower you go, the more it'll give time for these calculations to take place. It'll start to wrap around the face. So here we have the start of our beautiful veil. Now, if it is covering like the whole body, you can just start with, and you don't have to start with like that. You could go, hey, everything I see on here, I'm going to do a quick merge visible. That'll put a merge visible version of this guy. So I'm going to say append that merged mesh here, down here at the bottom. And now I'm going to use this as a basis for my cloth. First thing I'm going to do is we're going to do a quick save. And now I'm going to go through here. I'm going to do a slight inflate just to kind of seal up these things. And then I'm going to run a really kind of a low res Dynamesh here. So this, again, is just let's go into solo mode. This is just kind of the basis or a framework for the cloth that I want to make. So it's like, okay, where do you want your cloth to go? We'll turn off X symmetry, and let's say let's do this. Let's hold on control. We'll go in here to mask lasso, and we want to mask cloth like through here. I guess that'll work because it actually probably won't be in the mouth necessarily, right? So we'll go ahead and get rid of this. Basically, you're just masking where it makes sense for your cloth to kind of go. But it's not based on like you actually draping anything in particular. It's just this is where I want my cloth to go. So I'm going to say Control W to make that all one polygroup. Control Shift Tap, Geometry Modify Topology, Delete Hit. And we don't need this little extra piece in there for the mouth bag. So let's do a polygroups auto groups. Grab this one, delete hidden. I want to clean up these edges because if we're going to zero mesh this, we need to have those cleaned up. So I'm going to go in here, and in this case, it probably doesn't matter. You could probably just go in here and do a polish by feature or a polish and just smooth those edges out. If you wanted to, you can go into masking, mask by border, control tap to invert that, polish by feature, tap a couple times. That'll smooth that out. And now we can do our zero mesh half, depth size down to 0, nice even quads, and then just get this as kind of your draped mesh. Now this is like skin tight draped mesh. So not super accurate, like the cloth isn't going to behave like this. So I would go through here even at this point and say, you know what, cloth is going to kind of hit this and kind of grab the ear as an anchor point and then kind of go straight down and, you know, wrap here, and then cloth will kind of go across the face here. And I don't think it'll, now that I see this, it's probably going to hit the top here. So we'll go in here to our slice curve. And let's say this, slice curve, hold down spacebar, get rid of that B radius. Delete hidden. Zero mesh half. So this is just the way to kind of get a piece of cloth draped over your object here. I'm going to even do an inflate, deformation inflate. And now if I go through here and just run a simulation, that'll go through and we got kind of a cloth drape happening. This one's a little more Halloween-y than our other one, which is a little more classic. But whichever one you want to do as far as like getting the cloth where it kind of needs to be, it's up to you. We'll stick with the classic one for now. So we've wrapped the volumes to our mesh. Of course, we don't have a ton of geometry. So again, you can just keep hitting Control D. I'm going to just hit delete lower. And then again, we should still have our collision volume here. So if we turn everything else on, we left the glasses off. But this is how it's draping. This is the draped piece. We don't need this one anymore. So if I go through here, and again, now we have a little more, we're getting a little more detail in our cloth. Now, even if you had, well, I guess with any cloth, you probably want to have the less detailed volumes kind of working. And then you can go through here, you can hit Control D a couple more times, and then see if, again, you can go through here and run the simulation. It'll kind of slide down. If you want a little more movement, you can use this pull, and it'll kind of, again, give you those volumes here. You are going to start running into where it starts, what's this called? You start getting kind of noisy results up here. It's giving you the details, but the results are a little bit noisy. So you can also go in here, and our cloth is, oh, you know what? When we were subdividing, we didn't need to have that smooth modifier turned off anymore. I turned that off just when it was a plane, but let's go ahead and turn that smooth modifier on. So when we subdivide, it actually smooths the cloth out. That'll help a little bit. And again, we are still kind of getting a noisy-ish result. And also the wrinkles, you know, you can go through here and you can kind of scale against and pull out. It'll kind of start wrinkling the cloth against the underlying forms. And again, running simulation, kind of melts. I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to kind of push against here. And we can also do like B, C, brush, cloth, hook, or even your move brush. If you want to just use your move brush, but go into your brush settings and do a elasticity up to 100, simulation iterations up to 100. As you use your move brush, it will collide with the underlying volumes. Now, I will say, when you're doing this, again, you're getting that noisy result. So at this point is probably where I would turn off your collision volume here. And then when you start going through, just being careful with, like, let's go into our pinch brush and let's turn on, God, I was just in there. Elasticity, simulation iterations up to 100. So when I use my pinch brush, it'll actually go through and pinch the cloth. And then if you want to pinch at a lower resolution, that'll give you like broader wrinkles. And if you pinch at a higher resolution, or you can even hit Control D to subdivide one more time, you'll get very fine wrinkles. Eventually, your count over here will go past the max points here, but you can also just grab a little piece of this, have this little piece visible, and you can still simulate within that. Granted, these are a little too fine. You could drop the firmness or raise the firmness so that you're getting bigger wrinkles, but generally speaking, I just usually keep that at 2, and then if I want bigger wrinkles, I'll just drop my resolution. That's about it. So like if we have, I mean, that's as far as like getting your volumes, but at this point, you know, you could also go into like Marvelous Designer and, you know, drape some stuff, but this is where you would just go in and kind of looking at your reference and looking at the motion that you want. You're going to look at the anchor point, and then the cloth is going to kind of drape from that anchor point, and they're going to be kind of rectilinear. They're not. Go through here and fix your curves, basically, is what I'm trying to say, so that your profiles are nice and clean. I don't know, cloth sculpting, it's a whole thing. Go and study cloth more than I have, and you'll be in good shape. But again, you've got your basic underlying form, so you can use that to your advantage, and then go through here and check your profiles as you're sculpting. Go through here, and again, you could enhance these with a little bit of pinch, a little bit of cloth hook, BCH, nope, BC, or just move brush or whatever with elasticity turned on. We'll drop that intensity way down. You know, so you can kind of go through here and you can enhance a little bit of these wrinkles as you kind of push it around a little bit. So we have our, and man, everything you do to this guy is just creepy as hell. I love it. Yeah, so there's our cloth sculpted veil. Oh, and if you wanted to, if it is like just supposed to be sculptural, that's probably fine. But if you did need like an actual like wedding veil or something, you might be able to go in here to dynamic. Let's turn off our smooth subdiv, turn micro poly on, and you could drop in like a little bit of texture, cloth texture. Let's drop our subdivision down here so you can see a little bit better. 1, 2. Yeah, so that'll actually replace all of the faces. These aren't great for like, there we go. Something like this, maybe. This isn't real geometry, but while you're sculpting, it will update, or while you're draping, let's turn on our collision volume again. While you're draping, these will just follow along. So these are basically instances. So every face of that geometry is being replaced with this. Now, if you like this, you can say dynamic apply, and that'll make this real geometry. So you say dynamic apply, and now you can go in here and like inflate a little bit and give yourself a little bit of a little chainmail thing. Oh, I should probably, if you need resources, my ArtStation page, ZBrush What's New, I need to get caught back up again, but here's my ArtStation page. It's got a ZBrush section, and you can see previous live streams and YouTube videos. What do we want? Let's go home. And here, there's ZBrush What's New playlist and view all and all sorts of cool, fun stuff on there. So check those out. Oh, and if you're new to ZBrush, this intro to ZBrush New and Updated should kind of get you started-ish. Yeah. What are the updates? Honestly, I need to catch up myself. I'm right there with you. I apologize. I am, ever since February, I haven't, I mean, heck, let me look. Yeah, since February, I haven't looked at any messages or notifications on basically anything. I am very, very behind, but soon. I always say soon. It'll be next month. So maybe, I don't know, maybe 2026. Maybe 2026 I'll be back. Is Marvel's a good option for clothing? Yeah, I think so. It can sometimes be a little bit hard to control, and when we're talking about just doing this, I think it'll be like, yeah, just get a big sheet and then just grab your little, you can kind of pin, you can grab and drag and pin and then change the material attributes to something very sheer, and you can get these very, very cloth-like things. So yeah, it could work pretty good, I think. How can I permanently remove polypaint from model so I can freely change its color live using the color picker? So a couple different ways, and there's kind of a caveat to this too. So on this one, if we turn our color on, I think it was this one, oh, maybe not. So let's say we have a color on him. So we're going to go through here And we've got RGB turned on. So we've got a color painted on him. And I know when we turn off the colorize, there's a way to completely clear the poly paint. Yes. So, well, you can clear the poly paint by filling the verts with white, and that'll kind of get you back where you started. So, like what we were talking about in the chat, you can go in here. So right now, if I change the color, all of the subtools without the little, this is actually your, what is this, poly paint? Yeah, this little colorize button, that drives this little paintbrush here. So all of these ones that don't have the paintbrush on will just inherit whatever color I choose, as well as if I haven't filled with a material, it will inherit any material I choose. Now this one maintained the poly paint, but let me override the material because I don't have a material filled. So basically what we're seeing is white verts with red verts painted around the eyes. So if I want to have this inherit whatever color I select, like you said, I can turn this colorize off, and now it will inherit the color. And now if you want to just preview, I do think that's the only way to like do a live preview. But if you want to remove this poly paint entirely, that would just be going up here to like a white color and then color fill object. However, there's a caveat. So if you did have like chrome, so we'll do mRGB. Let's do M. So we're gonna say color fill object. We got our head selected. So now if I switch back to like basic material, you're going to see this material stays because we have colorize on, and the poly paint stays because colorize on. So if I change the color, these will update with the color, and these will update with the material, but not this one because the verts now have materials filled in with it. Now, so let's go back to this one. If I take white and we say RGB color fill object, that will replace all the verts on here with white verts. Now, colorize is still on, but the only way you're going to get a live update is if you turn colorize off, and now it's inheriting the material and the color that we choose. However, if we do turn colorize back on and you want to be like, okay, now I want this to inherit the material, no matter what material you put this on, it's not going to update this one because this one has material filled in. There is a way you can clear the material though. You can go in here to material, choose flat color, color fill object. That'll fill it with a flat color, and then now your material assignment is basically wiped out. So if we go back in here and we choose like matcap red clay, now all of the subtools are inheriting that material. So long story short, filling an object with a flat color material will wipe out the material assignment. But as far as getting a live update of your poly paint, the only way you can do that to like have the color show is just to turn that little poly paint button off, which you already knew about. But the material one might come in handy as well. If that makes sense, maybe. Another way to completely clear the poly paint. I think so. You can temporarily kind of clear a poly paint. Let's see if this works. So we've got a poly paint on here. You can go in here to render and then take this fade opacity, and you can like crank your fade opacity to 100, and then that will allow you to, no, that gets rid of all poly paint and all masking. Yeah, that's probably not what you're looking for. Yeah, because then you couldn't see the color. Any updates to ZBrush radiation course? Not yet. I got to circle back around to that, unfortunately. Soon, I hope. Recently graduated. Okay, cool. Excellent. Yeah, when did I leave off on that one? 2023. Yeah, I'll have to go in. I mean, I do have up to 2025 what's new. 2026 I haven't hit yet. So if you go here to ZBrush what's new, the ideation course probably stops. I forget what year that stops, but all of these are the updated videos for that. So those are just on YouTube. Show me how to use ZBottler's new presets. Oh, I wish I could. I have no clue. I haven't touched ZBrush in a long time, unfortunately. I mean, I could probably, and you know, that's another thing too, is when I install this. So thank you. Let's see, max on, oops, we're still on 2025. 2026. Documentation. ZBrush 2024, what's new? Yeah. I'll have to go watch the videos and look at the documentation if that gets updated. But, I mean, let me see. Extrude, polygroup. One-sided, no-sided. Polygon action. You can do presets. Add a preset. Polygon actions. Yeah, I haven't played with this, so let me get back to you on that one. Again, soon, I hope. Cool, excellent. Yeah, I actually don't know how to do it, so I apologize for that. Soon, like I said. Okay, really quickly, I think we're close enough. I'm going to go into my, I have a GeoSoft brush here. Pavlovich makes that one, so if you hit Control D one more time, we've got enough geometry information to start getting a little bit more details in here. So along the lips, I'm going to go ahead and carve in, looks like I carve, yeah. So let's go, okay, let's go in here to our Damien standard brush and we'll smooth this out. And we'll go through here. And I'm just going to kind of carve in where the mouth down turns. And then we'll go into our GeoSoft brush and right along the ridge here. Oh, you know what? I need to change this. Pin, customize. No, that is right. This seems kind of soft. I guess that's right. So I'm basically going in here and I'm just sculpting in that kind of line on his mouth here. Let's try Damien standard. For some reason my brush feels a little bit off, but it might just be me being a little unpracticed. So again, we're just indicating that lip line that he has. So let's show you real quick. Kind of digs in around the lips here and then kind of bulges out. You could make that a separate mesh, I suppose, but it's all part of the face, his face anyway. Oops, as it goes towards the back of the mouth, it kind of scoops under a little bit here. And then here's the bottom lip. So we'll go ahead and kind of dig this in. And now that we got that line, probably want to clean that up a little bit. So we'll just grab a little bit of a smooth brush. We'll turn that intensity down just a little bit. And don't be afraid to, if your stuff's getting wobbly, I wish I had a magic solution for you, but really it is just going in here and using your move brush, dropping that Z intensity down a little bit and literally just working your contours. Just going through here and just moving your camera around and making sure that you kind of dig those wobbles out. And if it's too much geometry, just drop your subdivisions down if you have access to them. Whoa. Oh, move brush. Okay. Simulation iterations down to 0 on your move brush. That'll help, as well as collision volume off. Whew. There we go. And then let's go ahead and grab our inflate brush. Let's make sure we don't have any simulation iterations on. And now we can just run an inflate down here. Let's crank that Z intensity up a little bit. Lazy mouse is usually pretty intense on here, so I'm gonna on the inflate brush, I'm gonna turn that down to 1. And now we can just kind of go through here and just run an inflate right along that seam line there. Now we can still use cloth simulation, so let's drop down to like Center level 3. We'll go into our pinch. Simulation iterations is still up, and as we go through here and we pinch, it'll actually deepen that line for us. So that'll just, it's kind of like running a contrast brush, which you also have, but it's using cloth simulation to kind of dig that line in for us. And then again, we'll go back to simulation iterations, and we'll continue to kind of thicken that out a little bit. And I'll go back to before. Now, again, I forgot to put the ear in here, but it's not a huge deal. I'll show you how you can maintain your polygroups and still add pieces, so you're not really losing anything. Standard brush, we need Z add back on. These look pretty standard, just standard stylized ears, just like a little hole built in. Almost looks like it's just kind of wrinkles. So we need to attach these ears to this head. Teeth can stay separate. And then the body also needs a little bit of help. Real quick, if we're just putting on a kind of a turtleneck, let's go ahead and duplicate this off. I'm going to drop, to say delete lower, Control Shift, we'll grab our knife curve, we'll do a quick save, and right about here is where that turtleneck is. So I'm going to go through here. Let's do this. Let's do a zero mesh half, depth size down to 0, keep groups. We have X symmetry turned on. So this will just give me a like a low res cylinder of where we indicated where that turtleneck's going to be, and then we're going to say extrude polygroup all, and then we're going to, instead of just extruding, I mean actually we are. Extrude polygroup all, and because we had polygroups on top and bottom, then those should be fine. And now that's kind of how it looks. It doesn't like go in. It's not super realistic, which is totally fine. So now, and these hands we can replace. So I think we're good as far as the body goes. So with just these two showing, I'm actually going to just merge this neck down onto the body. And then instead of doing like a Boolean, let's go ahead and make these both the same polygroup. Let's hit W, and let's go in here and do a remesh by union. So that'll do a Boolean without you having to go and like make a Boolean operation with a separate subtool or anything like that. And now we don't have any real detail on this body, so I'm not going to worry about projecting history or storing it. But if you wanted to, just Control tap that latest point. Now zero mesh half, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0, depth size down to 0. We got new body geometry, and now we can say crease PG. We can hit Control D to subdivide, and I think we're off to the races. So now we have that built back in. I'm going to leave that creased until we get to a certain point, and then I'll go through here and smooth that out as far as our sculpting goes. So along here, it looks like, again, first you want to make sure your volumes are pretty good. So like go down to subject level 2, and we'll kind of look at the chest here. We'll turn on X symmetry. We'll go through here and we'll kind of be like, okay, here's the little abdomen. We're not going to put any seam lines in just yet, but it's going to be like, okay, we'll square his shoulders up just a bit to kind of get that silhouette. God, they're even in further. This guy's got like no shoulders. Yeah, something like that. And then let's talk anatomy. So his lats here are kind of a beanbag. And again, it's not like this is going to be an anatomical model, although that'd be kind of fun to do like our, who did I do? I did a cutaway. I think it was Finn from Adventure Time. if I remember correctly. But you still want like at least the volumes to be vaguely correct. You know, again, we're not building in lats or spinal erectors or anything like that, but making sure everything is about where you'd expect for a humanoid silhouette. And then, okay, so as we continue to subdivide here, let's go subdivision level 2. We'll go back in here with our Damien standard brush. And that still feels light to me. Let's go check out my brush settings. Or my Wacom settings here. So we'll use this to kind of dig in, then we'll hold down Alt to kind of pull out a little bit. You know what we also have? We have our B Orbs Cracks brush. We can swap that out too. This one might feel a little bit better. Yeah, that one feels the same. Okay, so if you ever need to, you can go in here. I'm going to do a Control-Alt, tap a brush, and then assign it to a new, or overwrite the hotkey, so I can just kind of swap the Geo brush out for the Orbs Cracks brush, and then if I ever want it back, I can swap it back in. No big deal. We'll go through here. We'll give them this little back area. And then on the side here, let's subdivide one more time. Let's swap back. And just along this one side, I'm going to give him his little lab coat. And this is where it's high enough resolution where I can go through here and I can just smooth out that top of the neckline. Just to ease that off a little bit. And then as far as this lab coat, it's going to go down the side here. And then we'll hold down Alt, and we'll kind of pull up, like so. And he does have some indications like where the buttons are. So that's where I'll drop down to subdivision level 3, and then right about here, there will be a button, and then right about here, there will be a button, and then right about here, there'll be another little lab coat button. That'll kind of sell that fabric a little bit. So here, here, here. Yeah, that's fine. And then here we'll maybe indicate he's got a little bit of a cloth wrinkle. And again, you could use your pinch brush if you want to sell that a little bit more. And then go in and refine it. And then right about here. So, if you ever you're getting to this level and everything has subdivisions, one thing I like to do is just go in here. We'll do an insert, a Polymesh 3D star. We'll shoot it at the top here. Go into transparency mode. We'll scale this down. Oops. BT transpose classic. BTC. So we'll scale this down a little bit so it's not in the way. And this will be our name catcher. So when we finally go to save this for real, we'll throw this on our desktop. That'll catch the name, and it doesn't ever have subdivision level, so if I ever want to insert something on here, I can just go in here, grab a cylinder, for example, throw this on there, and I don't have to worry about finding a subtool with history. So we'll go ahead and say split this off. It looks like these have a little bit of detail, so we can go ahead and build that in really quickly. So I'm going to do a quick group by normals. We'll do an inset. Polygroup all legacy, and we'll pull this in a little bit, and then I want this to kind of be a like button out, so I'm going to Control Shift drag, or Control Shift tap, Control Shift drag to invert, delete hidden, hover over an edge, we'll close convex hole, and we'll just pull out and round that off, and then we'll make that its own polygroup, so we can say crease PG, crease level of 2, smooth set of 3, and now we got a little button that we can now go through here. I'm going to hold down Control and drag. And because these are subdivision, they're just dynamic subdivisions. They're not real subdivisions. If I do Shift D, it goes back to no subdivisions, so it makes it a lot easier to scoot stuff around. Like so. Okay, got our little lab coat, got our little wrinkles. We can still go through here, and again, we'll just kind of indicate where some wrinkles are on his clothing here. And then his arms are kind of basic. And then he's got those big rubber gloves. What else? Oh yeah, so then I was going to show you, we have detail here and we have polygroups here. Let's do control tap the latest point in history to store those details. Now wait, there's something else we got to do. We got to grab these ears and put these in, right? So these ears we're going to make part of one mesh. This one here, we're going to merge down. We don't need any subdivision history for this, so we're going to say just merge that down. So now the ears, they're merged, but they're still a separate object. So again, we're going to control tap the latest point in history. If it's difficult to get that latest point in history, go in here to edit, delete older, undo histories. That'll clear it out. So now if we tap that point in history, that's going to store our high-res points, although really we don't want those interior points. So let's do this first. Let's turn off X symmetry. Let's go in here and we'll do a remesh by union. So that'll sew these ears on here. So now they aren't separate pieces anymore. And we're doing a remesh instead of a dynamesh because we got some tight corners in here and we got some nice polygroups we don't want to lose. So doing a remesh by union is doing a Boolean. That'll give us a little bit of a crisper result. Again, just to play it safe, I'm going to grab a little piece of this mesh, Control-Shift-A, geometry, modify topology, delete hidden, just in case there's any floating pieces. Now I'll control-tap the latest point in history, and now that'll store all these vert positions, and now I'll do a ZBrush half, depth size 7. Actually, ZBrush half is probably not very helpful. Let's do like 26,000. So that's going to look at our polygroups, attach our ears. The ears have their own polygroups. It's going to look at the polygroups and put geometry around those polygroup areas. And now we have a new low res with everything sewn in. And now we'll do a project history that projects back to those stored points. Control D to subdivide, project history, Control D to subdivide, project history. So we're kind of back where we started. We have the ears sewn in now. We have subdivision history, so we need to drop down to lower. Oops. Project history. X symmetry turned on. So we can drop down, go through here and refine at a lower resolution, and then go back up to get our details back. So on the back here, we'll go ahead and use our clay brush to kind of soften that a little bit, and then up to subdivision level 3, smooth, and then maybe Damien standard. Oh. Something weird, or maybe I'm just not used to it. Oh wait, is this? That's stamp standard 02. That's my fault. It's like, why does this feel so weird? Because I grabbed the wrong one. A, B, C, D, Alt D. Yes. Okay. Stamp standard 02 is fine. I just wasn't what I was expecting. There we go. That's the feel I was looking for. Okay, so we got this. We got his ear going. That kind of digs around in here, kind of goes up a little bit, and then something like this. I'm going to put in a little guess here that this is kind of how it should be-ish. And then dig a little hole in there. Alrighty, one more thing, just really quickly, just to kind of finish the thought on these glasses here. Let's do Shift-Z, and yeah, they just basically go from, the middle back and then a little bridge down the front. These don't necessarily have to be, let's do this. Let's do group by normals, mirror and weld across the x-axis. We'll do another inset polygroup all legacy. And these are all kind of one piece too, but if we wanted to render these with glass, we might want to rethink this. If we like to keep this thickness, we can just tap on the back. Let's do this. Let's duplicate this off. And then I'm going to say, we're in solo mode. So I'm going to Q mesh this polygroup back, and that'll just kind of give us our rims. And then we can go back in here. I'm going to grab this piece here from that duplicate. And now this can be our lenses basically. So I'm going to pull this back a little bit, and we're going to do a display properties flip, and then I'm going to delete this front polygroup here. Actually, yeah, I will delete both of these. Actually, I just need the thickness basically, because I'm going to go back in here and do another closed convex hole, pull that out, and kind of round this out a little bit. Control Shift Tap, Control W, and then I guess we don't even need that thickness because we can just say delete hidden and then Q mesh this back and then flip and then increase PG. Not great, but whatever. W, let's go to unmash mesh center. We can also hold down Alt if you want to scale. First turn on LSIM. So if you want to scale uniformly down the center, you can. You can also hold down Alt and scale in just the Z axis. I don't know that those are make much of a difference, but there we go. So Alt tap this one, we'll hit D for dynamic, we'll hit crease PG, crease level of 2, smooth div of 3, kind of knock that back a little bit. These need to look a little bit closer. So I'm going to move on, turn on move multiple. I'm going to grab these two here, and we're going to scoot those in just a, I don't know. Those are pretty close actually. Maybe down a little bit. Okay. Now, if we want to bridge these two pieces together as one solid piece, again, we don't have to, but we can. So I'm going to say Alt, tap. Let's do this. Shift D, turn off dynamic. We'll say delete a poly here. We'll say bridge, two holes hovering an edge, and then we'll tap this one, and we'll just kind of, we'll do this. I'm going to do a quick insert single edge. It's not right down the middle, so I'm going to say mirror and weld. We'll build in a little arch. Let's turn off move multiple here, and now we'll do a bevel right down the middle, and then we'll do another mirror and weld. And if we want to move, we can go in here to depth, and we're going to say infinite depth in the Z direction. So as I move this, it's going to go straight back. So now we can kind of use this to kind of give ourselves that little bridge here. And let's do another quick group by normals, geometry by topology, mirror and weld. We can say, again, crease PG, crease level 2, smooth div of 3. Let's do crease level of 1. Yeah. And we can also go in here if we want to thicken these up. We can say Q mesh, polygroup all, just hold down Shift. We can kind of go through here and just pull along those surface normals to kind of give ourselves a little more thickness. And here, straight on back, I suppose the best way to do that is to do Shift D. I want these to be a little bit wider. So I'm going to say, I'm going to grab these two. I'm going to Q mesh them out, and we still have infinite depth turned on, so I can go through here and I can kind of pull these back in a little bit. So that gives me my out, and then I want to take these back. So I'm going to angle this out a little bit. So let's turn on our infinite depth into the Y direction. Because I want these to kind of angle back to where that ear is a little bit. I want to maintain that roundness. Okay, so I'm going to Alt drag over these. I'm going to Q mesh this out just a little bit, and then I'm going to go to the side. I'm going to unmask those. Go to unmask mesh center, And now let's just take these. And it's going to have to curve around the head a little bit, but we can fix that. So here, and now if we want to just keep wrapping this around the ear, all we got to do is hold down Control and drag, and then we can kind of rotate, Control, drag, and rotate. And we can go through and collapse and clean this up a little bit, but that's the basic idea. Now, we need a few more divisions in here. So I'm going to go into solo mode. We're going to say, well, first let's make sure, let's go in here with our pinch, and we'll turn off simulation durations, and we'll thin those out just a little bit as it goes back. We'll need to do a little bit of cleanup, but that's fine. Let's do an uncrease all temporarily. And now if we want to bend this out, we'll say insert, multiple edge loops, not interactive thickness or anything like that. We'll do another group by normals, geometry, modify, topology, mirror, and weld. So basically I do that so the polygroups are the same on both sides. Now I can hold down, so my move brush, I can hold down Alt as I pull, and it'll kind of pull straight out from that normal. And boy, these wrap significantly. Yikes. Let's go ahead and mask this so we don't accidentally lose that roundness. And let's see, I might need to, that seems a little extreme. So I might go in here and be like, okay, this is about the wrap I'm looking for these glasses. Now I'm going to go back to his head. We'll drop down to subdivision level 1, and I'll just kind of give him, I don't want to lose this. So we'll mask this out. I'll Control Tap to kind of blur that out so it fades a little bit. And I'll kind of give his face a little bit more of a plane there. Alrighty, so we'll straighten this out. And if we want to simplify these, we could go in here. So we want to maintain this curve in here, but then out here we don't necessarily need to. So we could go in here and like collapse this edge and just simplify that down. Probably should have done that first before I extruded, but this will get rid of that kind of midline here. We'll collapse that up. I'm hoping that like we could maybe collapse a poly loop, but I think this is going to do more than I want. Yeah, so we're kind of stuck. Just collapsing an edge, unfortunately, but it just takes a second. Boop, boop, boop. And then I'll go look at the comments again. There we go. And a little bit more. And if you ever want to, you can get rid of the thickness altogether because you still have polygroups here. So if you're ever like struggling with the thickness and getting it the same thickness all over and you've been mushing things around for a long time and you're kind of sick of it, that's when you can just go in here and just grab all these front-facing polygroups like so. That's all of them, and get rid of this one. And then you can just say like, you know, delete hidden, and then go back in here and do let's do an extrude all polygons, and then just pull this back, and that'll give you more uniform thickness all over. So you got options. So again, one more time, we'll do a crease PG, and then turn on D for dynamic. And we got that, and then we'll go back to our head here, pick that up. Got a little more detail on here. We need to put on his little bolts and stuff, but made some pretty good progress. Drink coffee. Let's see here. Yeah, so see my other presets I don't know yet. Sorry about that. Again, I'll keep apologizing. How can one get smooth strokes with clay buildup brush? From time to time we'll get stepping, which would be quite annoying. Yeah, absolutely. So on the face here, so let's go back to our clay buildup brush. I have it set to clay tubes right now, but you know, this one will give you stepping as well. Let's do this. Clay buildup, Alt B. Yes, same thing for clay buildup. Yeah. So one thing is, if you can, even if you're working, wait a minute. Yeah. Did I not have Z? Did I not have X symmetry turned on when I ZBrush this? That's kind of weird of me. I should have. So when you're sculpting, let's say you're sculpting on a Dynamesh and it's a high resolution Dynamesh and you're starting to like, if you're not going to be taxing that Dynamesh anymore, you're not going to be making any big changes. It's going to kind of shear your geometry. So if you're here, if you're at this resolution with your Dynamesh, let's say, and you're like, I want to go in here and start sculpting volumes, but it's kind of hard to like get the mesh to do what I want because it's so dense. What I would do at that point is, again, control tap the latest point in history, ZBrush it down to something manageable, and then subdivide, project, subdivide, project, subdivide, project. And then once you've done that, then you'll have subdivision history. So what you can do with your clay buildup brush is, and again, I'm not really answering your question, but for anybody watching, that's where you can have a little bit more freedom, or it'll be a lot easier to go through and smooth volumes or move volumes around without it. Oh, I have infinite depth turned on. Without it being just so wobbly and so much geometry and such a pain, basically. So it'll allow you the freedom to kind of go through here and work at a lower resolution, and then you can bump this up one and then continue to go through here and refine. Now, once you get to a certain stage where you're going through and you're building up volumes, you are going to get like we were talking about the stepping. So for these wrinkles right here, if I go through here and we'll do another, let's switch this one back to, now that I know what my brushes are. Okay. So if I go through here and I kind of, again, we're going to dig in these forehead wrinkles, and then I want to build these up. I could go in here with an inflate down here a little bit, or I could go in here with a clay brush or a clay buildup brush. So when you do the clay buildup brush, you can work your contours very nicely, but you are going to kind of have that kind of stepped look. To combat that, you can go in here to stroke, and you can change your lazy step. So now it's at the 0.1. We'll set that to like 0.05, just make it a little smaller. And the smaller that is, the smoother your stroke is, but it's also going to build up faster. So you might need to drop that Z intensity down. So that's one. Also, you could, under modifiers, I think if you crank this roll distance up, that'll also smooth it out. And in fact, if you go to like, let me see if I got Magdalena's brushes on here. I'll give you a couple links in just a second. Yeah. So here is a clay tubes brush, and you'll see that roll distance is set to 5 on this one. And this will give you a little bit of a smoother stroke. And if you want to know more about that, YouTube, or we'll just Google ZBrush Masters Complete Series. If you watch Geo's, the ones that are coming to, I mean, watch all of them, but Geo's and Magdalena videos on here will tell you how to use these clay buildup brushes for volumes much better than I could. But that's a basic idea. So basically you could go in here to your lazy mouse step and crank that down a little bit, or go up to your roll distance. But usually actually what I end up doing is I'm going to go in here. So if I grab this Clay Tubes MD, if I want to save over my default clay tubes whenever I start up ZBrush, I can. Careful when you do this, but go to Brush, Save As, with the new brush loaded that you want to save over. And we're going to go to, oops, I need to bring my ZBrush 2026 in here. ZBrush 2026, Z Data brush presets. I'm going to select that first, Control C, Control V. So I have a backup of, these are the default ZBrush brushes. So we're going to go in here to Brush, ZBrush. We have this clay tubes. We're going to save over our default clay tubes, replace it. So now every time I start up ZBrush, this clay tubes will be with my other settings, basically. Yes. So we'll crank our C intensity back up. Another thing I'll tend to do is underneath brush, hold down shift and go to smooth brush modifiers. And if you hold down shift, you can set your weighted smooth mode to 1. That'll be smooth stronger. So if you're working at higher resolutions, you can crank that up, and that'll allow you to kind of really smooth a surface even at, 375,000. Oh yeah, and then on this bad boy here, let's do Shift D. What's going on here? You can see how it has kind of a crease in there. Let's do a polish by feature. That's on your deformation menu. I'm going to tap that a few times just to kind of even that surface out. I don't know what happened there. Okay, so we've got this. We need to have some sculptural detail on it, and this is all fake, right? It's dynamic. So I'm going to say dynamic apply. That'll make it real subdivision history. And then we'll hit Shift Z. And one more time, I'm going to kind of go through here and kind of try and get a decent idea of where these little bolts go. So I'm going to go back to my standard brush, RGB turned on, and we can just paint here, and then we'll see how this lines up. So we'll go to the next image here. Yeah, that's about right. And we'll go to this very last one here. We'll turn on perspective. Yeah, I say that's pretty close, and then I'm just going to paint that last one in there. So there is where my bolts generally end up, maybe a little bit lower. So let's add those in. So first, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go into mask pen. I just want to grab this outside of the mesh. I'm going to Control Shift tap that poly group to grab it. I'm going to go through here and I'm going to mask. If your mask is a little weak, go into, hold down Control so you're in your mask pen. Go into tablet pressure, RGB intensity, and I'm going to just crank this up a little bit. So now when I control drag, it's a very intense mask. And in fact, if you hold down Control, mask pen, brush save as with Control held down, remember we can go back into 2026, ZBrush, Z data, brush presets. We copied them off already, and then we'll put this into our mask. We'll save over our mask pen. Mask pen. There we go. So now whenever I load up ZBrush, my mask will automatically be a little more intense, which is usually what I want. So we'll go ahead and we'll just mask this one out, and we'll mask this one out. That's on the side of the head here. And we got one more back here. And I can't tell if there's one along the back, but let's see. Let's see if it feels right. Yeah. If not, I apologize to the purists out there. The Finkelstein purists. Okay, so we've got this. Now I'm going to Control tap to invert that, and I'm also going to turn off dynamic, turn off our poly paint here. And in fact, we don't even have to see our mask. You could, like we talked about earlier, you can go in here to render fade opacity. That'll fade your mask out or hide your mask temporarily. You can also go down here to masking, and we'll turn off view mask. So when we go through here and do a deformation inflate, we can just see that result. And I think that'll work just fine. That's fine, whatever. We'll just pull these out a little bit. We'll Control Shift tap to bring everything else back. And then we'll just go through here and we'll do a little cleanup. Hold down Shift. Now remember, we do have under Smooth Brush Modifiers, weighted smooth mode set to 1. We can set that back to 0 and even drop our Z intensity down a bit. So we've got those volumes about where they should be. And then on here, yeah, let's do this. Let's go back to our name catcher. I'm going to turn on X symmetry. And these just look like pretty plain old bolts. Let me see if I have one. Yeah, I have a rivet. That'll work. So I'll go through here. And if you want to make these all the same size, make your brush size, I about the size that you want, and then and also if they're not embedded enough, you can go in here to depth. We can pull that down just a tiny bit. So again, as you're dragging out, hold down Control, it'll snap it to your brush size, like so. It'll embed a little bit further. There we go. And these are all still stuck to that star, so we'll just grab our lasso here, split hidden, move those below. And in fact, on this one here, we can morph these bottoms back. I noticed that, like, in the reference, these bottoms are actually a little more flush to the head. And instead of going in here and H polish, what we can do is we can go back in our timeline to where these didn't exist. Control tap that point and Control tap. What am I looking for? Oh, yeah, masking is fine. Control tap that point in history. We'll go to BMG. BMG, which is our morph brush, and our morph brush should, oh, it's only those points are showing, so we got to only show those points, and then there we go. So it's a morph brush, so you have to have the exact same vertex order. So when we stored history here, only this polygroup was showing. So if we want to use our morph brush to go back to those points, we should only have those points showing. I'm going to drop the Z intensity brush on this pretty, and we're just going to morph back to the original state along the bottom here, because it's barely visible. It like pops out at the top, but not so much at the end. So we could have done that when we were masking, but I have to do a little bit of cleanup work, and the morph brush will work beautifully for this particular task. Control-Shift-Tab to bring everything else back. We'll do a quick little smooth here. Nice. Got our bolts in there. Got our head. He does have those big cone hands. We could do that real quick if y'all want. And the brain. So again, we have our... this, go ahead and pop his top off. We got this sitting at the bottom of the bowl, so let's utilize that. And we're going to say grab a Z-sphere. Oops. Grab the star. Pull in a sphere here. We'll say split mass points. And now we'll do our two hemispheres of the brain. So basically he takes half of his brain and puts it into the other thing there. So we'll go ahead and see if we can't do a quick stylized brain. Let's turn on transparency. Make that fit in there. Now, looks like it's got a little bit more of a peak, but we don't want his brain poking out when we have his other stuff on, so we want to make sure, yeah. So turn on Ghost so you can sculpt through. Now, brain. I feel like we can maybe use masking. So back in the day, I feel like we've done a couple brains before. So in here, if we do Krang, we did a good old Krang brain on here, and I think we used claw simulation, and then we did fin. Yeah, this little anatomy brain in there. Oh, and also we did log. We did the log brain. So we've done quite a few brains, and I want to say it was mostly claw simulation. Oh, let me go back here. You know why sometimes when working with nanomesh, all elements are properly aligned, but only one or two not? What can you do when that happens? Oh, do I still have my... Oh, I don't. I still have my cloth. So, yeah, let's take these glasses. Let's do a quick save. Let's go into solo mode here. And then we have nanomesh, which is this one here. So let's go to BI, brush insert industrial parts. Let's go in here to brush, create, and we'll say create nanomesh brush. So we have, these are now nanomesh able. So now I'm going to hover over this and we're going to say insert. Let's grab, let's cotter pin. Let's hover over face with our new created Z modeler brush with nanomesh pieces added to it. Insert nanomesh on all polygons, and if I pull this way, they're all going to follow some sort of surface normal, right? There's a couple different ways you can change this. So you can go in here to alignment, and you can say, okay, align to normal, short edge, long edge, near edge, point order, random edge, no alignment. If you get one of these to be close, you'd be like, okay, it's perfect except for just a couple. You can just go into the face here, and I think there is a spin edges. So if you click, or is it just spin? Or is it spin edges? Yeah, I think it's spin edges. Or maybe, let's see, let's do no alignment. Oh yeah. Okay, well, you can go individually and you could do spin edges. So you can go through here and you can just tap the face with spin edges, and you can, you know, fix anything that's a little bit, if everything's perfect except for just one of these, you can go in here and just spin these around. Obviously, if you have to align to normal, it's not going to allow you to spin edges. You have to be out of no alignment. Another thing you can try to do is it's under geometry, modify topology. There is, oh, spin edges in there. There is a, I thought it was in here. Mesh from background, divide, spin edge, align. Oh, align edges, it's right here. Click align edge, and that will go through and try and make everything pointing the same way. And then you can go through here manually, and if there's anything that's just out of whack, go through here and spin. So you can grab the face. If you're accidentally grabbing edges, just go in here and say do nothing for edges, and then say do nothing for points, and then you can just go through here and just like spin these things manually to kind of go through and fix. If it's just a couple, hopefully you can go through there and spin edges. Let's see, do you use ZBrush for texturing too, or something else? Yeah, for texturing I'll use ZBrush for polypainting, especially for like something like this. I would probably absolutely go through and just kind of polypaint. It's great for gradients and masking these little interior parts and doing like a cartoony, painterly polypaint. If I'm texturing for real, not for real, but for like game development, probably using Substance Painter or Marmoset. Yeah, probably those two, but probably mostly Substance Painter. I do have stuff on that here if you're interested. We go into texturing a little bit, you know, going through and yeah. I don't do it super heavily on my channel, but I do have some Substance Painter stuff on there. Yeah, I will try to, yes, I am, eventually I'll do a video on the new update. I just have to get back in there and learn it, tape it, record it, upload it, all that stuff. I have a whole iPad series that I never released. It's just sitting videos that need to be edited on my computer. One day I'll have time. Let's see. The creepy beautiful. Excellent. Thanks, John Yu. I don't think I'll be on this Thursday, honestly, but like I said, 2026, we'll aim for 2026 being when I come back. Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Taking part in ZBrush Sculpt Off this year. I'll check it out, but I'm so out of the loop. I've been out of it for a while. I apologize, since February. Yeah, give that a shot. It is 7:57 my time, so we got pretty far. Let's see. Is there any... oh, yeah, we were doing the brain. We'll wrap it up with the brain really quick. I'll just give you a couple quick pointers so you can finish out your own version if you're following along. So for the brain, we want 2 hemispheres of the brain. So like what we did earlier, let's do Control Shift. Let's grab our knife curve, hold down spacebar, brush radius, make that a very small brush radius, do a quick save. We'll go right down the middle and we'll do a, oops, and then we'll do a, hold down Alt, and that'll slice through, and then we'll do Control Shift. We'll grab 1/2, turn off X symmetry, delete hidden, zero mesh half, depth size down to 0, keep groups, smooth groups down to 0, get some new geometry, and I'm just going to do a quick, make sure LSIM is turned off. We'll do a mirror and weld. Oof, let's scoot that over just a tiny bit. Mirror and weld. There we go. So we got our 2 brain hemispheres. We'll turn on X symmetry again. Now, how do we get the brain? Let's say crease PG. Let's Control D. Let's do crease level of 1. Smooth subdiv of 3. So we've got our 2 hemispheres going, and now we need... It might be easiest just to kind of sculpt, honestly. I don't have any brain versions in here, but let's real quick. Texture, import, desktop. I'm going to grab this one and this one. Add here. And in fact, you know what? Let's do this. Let's delete and delete and delete. And just click on that little X. Now, we're just going to add a couple of these brain ones. Now, if you add something and you're seeing it's going too transparent, that means they're going to perfectly black. So we're going to go in here at intensity and just crank that up so it's dark gray. And then we'll turn that off. Turn that down. Z. So you can see on this side, they kind of dig in. And that could just be sculpted. So let's do this. Let's go out of X symmetry. I'm going to grab this one here. We'll say delete hidden. And I'm going to say dynamic apply. And we're just going to kind of get an idea of what this brain should be on the inside. RGB intensity. And then we're going to flip this around and like so. Now, like we were talking about, you can go in here to render and fade opacity and just kind of knock that back while you're sculpting. I like to do a little white color, RGB intensity down, color fill object, and just tap that a couple times. And then we'll just go in here with like our Damien Standard or your Orbs Cracks brush or whatever, Geo Soft brush, and we'll go through here and we'll just start defining these little sections here. And we can use claw simulation to kind of help, but I'm not going to let it just run the show. I want my wrinkles to be in specific places. These are stylized in a very specific way. So we'll kind of start with this and kind of get these shapes going like so. This one looks like a kind of, yeah, something like this. Let's continue these down. And then if I see, yeah, they're just kind of like coils. So I'm just going to kind of keep that going here if I can. And we can turn off RGB for our smooth brush. So if we have our poly paint, it won't destroy it. And then we'll see if we can't get these to line up a little bit. And this is where this dividing line is probably a little too harsh. So I'm going to go in here with my trim dynamic, and we're just going to knock that back a little bit. And a little smooth brush, again with RGB turned off, and then back in here with our Damien Standard or whatever, and trying to get these things to kind of line up between it. if this is kind of getting in your way, just go in here and turn off poly paint. And then again, if you want to make this more contrasty, you can go in here to the contrast brushes. There's even a contrast deformer. So under your deformers contrast, you can just crank that up. You can also go in here to clay. Where's my contrast? There it is. Contrast delta, contrast target. We'll do target. And you can go through here and you can kind of just increase the contrast, or like we were doing, you can go in here and use elasticity, crank that up. Now we're pinching along here, so you can kind of go through and pinch these corners, or you could even go in here to dynamics. We'll turn off gravity. We'll do a little tiny bit of inflate and a tiny bit of expand. So when we run the simulation, it'll kind of, let's turn off inflate. Let's just do expand. There we go. So it'll kind of allow your mesh to kind of expand out a little bit. We have a little too much geometry, I think, so I'm going to drop that down. Again, we'll run the simulation with a little expand, and that'll kind of go through and push along that surface normal. Or you can have expand turned on, and then when we go into maybe our inflate brush with simulation iterations turned on, while we're inflating, no, maybe if we use our move brush with simulation iterations turned on, and then we'll crank that expand up just a little bit. What that's basically doing is, like, when I'm using my move brush, it's kind of just having the dynamic simulate. So you can kind of just go through here and use that as a contrast brush. Let's go up one more. Let's see how that works. That's not bad. You can just kind of wiggle and it'll go through and kind of expand. And then we'll go through, we'll do just a quick polish by feature to maybe tone that down a little bit. And then individually, we can just go back in with our inflate brush. Let's turn off expand, and let's turn off simulation iterations. So we got a little more contrast, and then we can go back in here with our inflate brush. Let's turn off lazy mouse. I need to rework these shapes up at the top. They don't make a whole lot of sense, but take your time, go through, do your inflate, kind of sell it. You could even go in here in the corners once you get up to a certain resolution. That's the way it's, so you got all this stuff inflated, then you hit Control D. You could even go into these corners a little bit and kind of give it a little bit of a, you know, wrinkle. Oops, let's turn off. There we go. And we'll crank that down a little bit. So again, just giving a little bit of, you know, where it would kind of bulge as it's kind of wrapping around and kind of getting pinched in the corners. You can kind of sell that idea. And then when you're done, you can just duplicate this over and reconstruct. So I'll show you how to do that real quick. See intensity all the way up. So we'll do delete lower, geometry modify topology, mirror and weld across the x-axis, and then we'll just do a reconstruct. There we go. And then everything goes back on, and we're at time. Shoot. Yeah, spin edge. Retopo tool in this version, right? Yes, I'll have to check that out as well. I'm right there with y'all. Check out the videos. And hopefully I'll have videos I can shoot up on my YouTube channel. That's just been a while since I've been able to. I'm doing good. I use a lot, but not everyone knows about. I think pretty much everything I use in all my live streams. I'm trying to think. I mean, one is that Move Acu with, I think I learned this one from Paul. So if you've got a move with Acu curve turned on, that'll allow you to kind of pull to sharper points. I use that all the time. That's kind of a buried one. There's a lot of little buried ones in ZBrush. Actually, real quick, BI brush insert. I am in body parts M. Let's grab these hands. Let's go grab our star here. So we're going to grab these hands on here. We're going to say split mass points. I think he's got 1, 2, 3 fingers and a thumb. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3 fingers. No pinky. So we can hold down Control Shift We'll go to select lasso. I'm going to grab this pinky joint here. We'll say delete hidden, auto groups, geometry modified topology, mirror and weld, isolate, delete hidden, close holes. That'll close the front and the back. We'll go ahead and we'll auto groups this one. Mirror and weld. I want these to be the same poly group. There we go. And then these are going to be pretty tiny. These are like, so let's turn on LSIM. Pretty tiny hands. And I want these to be, let's hold down control and drag with our classic. Jeez. There we go. Okay, so we've got a hand on here, and then really quickly, we'll grab a cylinder. Let's do a quick split mass points here. And I want to taper these, so we're going to go in here and we're going to do a, I guess we can just do a taper. Grab this one here and we'll shrink it down. And then we'll scooch this over and we'll shrink these down so it just goes down about here. And then if we want to shrink this down, we'll just unmask this, go to Unmask Mesh Center, hold down Alt, and just scale along here. So now, and again, see scale along there. I'm going to leave a little lip on here, which we'll get rid of in just a second. And now I'm going to say you get merged down onto the hand, you unmasked, something like that. Now on this one here, let's do a quick group by normals and then another mirror and weld. So we have all of our polygroups where we want it. We're going to hit W, remesh by union. We don't have any real details, so I'm just going to do a quick ZBrush, half, adapt size down to 0, keep groups, and maybe not down to 0. Smooth groups down to 0, ZBrush. Let's say same. There we go. So now we've got our fingers. This is built in. I'm going to hold down Shift and smooth this out. Oh. That's okay. We can get rid of this. Let's do a collapse edge. And in fact, this can all be one polygroup. And in fact, this can all be one polygroup. Come on. Oh, I got select lasso. Here. Okay. And in fact, let's do this. Delete hidden. Because I think it does go in a little bit, so I'm going to do a quick close convex hole on this one. Control Shift. We'll do an inset, polygroup all legacy, and we'll pull in a little lip, and then we'll pull in down here, and we'll hit Control tap this polygroup here. We'll pull this in a little bit. There we go. And then we'll do a crease PG. So as I subdivide this, it'll keep those nice and crispy. And then these interior arms here, you can probably just get rid of those. X symmetry turned on. Something like that. Okay, and then this one needs to be mirror, mirror and weld, X symmetry turned on, Control D to subdivide, and go through and just, I mean, these are all pretty basic shapes, but go through and sell the volumes and any movement that they might have, and yada yada. We'll go through here and we'll inflate these fingers up a little bit. There we go. Alrighty. We got our little Dr. Finkelstein creature character guy. And we'll go ahead and pop his... Oh, so if you want to rotate these back, let's go to move multiple. We'll drag over both of these. We'll grab that little hinge in the back. Oops. We don't want... We want this one and this one only. There we go. Okay. Cool, cool, excellent. I've been using ZBrush for a little bit, but if you want more resources, here's my YouTube channel, and like I said, there's a whole ZBrush What's New playlist in there, and then on my ArtStation page as well, there's a ZBrush, whole ZBrush section right here that you can check out. And most of my live streams are all ZBrush anyways, so there's more stuff in there. Oh, I'm not 1999. That's when I graduated high school. But I think I started using ZBrush like 2004, 2003, 2004. I was still in college. But anyway, thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your month. Have a happy Halloween.